All right, today we're putting on our architect hats, but we're not designing buildings, we're designing businesses. We're going to get into the blueprint for how companies are actually built and figure out why some feel rock solid while others, well, they feel like a total house of cards. So grab your hard hat, let's get to it. You know that feeling, right? You call customer service and you get bounced from one person to another, and you have to explain your problem over and over and over again. That deep, hair-pulling frustration, that is a classic sign that a company's internal design is completely broken. And here's the thing, it's almost never the fault of the people on the phone. The real problem is the blueprint, the company's organizational structure. That formal way jobs are arranged is this hidden framework that controls everything. And when that blueprint is a mess, you get total chaos. So first things first, let's dig into why so many of these blueprints are just doomed to fail from the start. You see, a good blueprint is all about creating clarity. It needs to answer the most basic questions. Who does what? Who reports to whom? And how do all these different pieces actually work together? When a company's structure fails at these fundamentals, you don't just get confused employees. You get frustrated customers and a whole lot of burnout. So to design a great blueprint, there are really 6 fundamental building blocks that every organizational architect has to master. Think of these as the core components you can tweak and combine to build pretty much any kind of organization. These 6 elements right here, they're the levers you can pull in your architectural toolkit. How you combine them is what determines whether you end up building a rigid, old-school skyscraper or a flexible, modern startup hub. Let's break each one down. First up, we've got work specialization. Now, this idea is ancient. It goes all the way back to Adam Smith's famous pin factory. The concept is simple. Instead of one person trying to do a huge job, you break it down into small, repeatable steps. At McDonald's, one person's on the grill, another is on the fryer. This division of labor is incredibly efficient. But there's a catch. Go too far with it and you get bored, disengaged employees who feel like just another cog in a machine. It's a real balancing act. Okay, so you've created all these specialized jobs. Now what do? You've got to group them together somehow. And that's departmentalization. You could group them by what they do, like putting all the marketing people together, or you could group them by product. Take a giant like Procter & Gamble. They organize their teams around brands. So the Tide team is separate from the Pampers team, because each of those products needs its own unique strategy. Next up, chain of command. This one sounds super formal, but it's probably the most fundamental element. It's that clear, unbroken line of authority that answers the most basic question you have at any job. Who is my boss? Who do I go to with a problem? A clear chain of command just cuts out so much confusion and makes sure everyone is accountable to someone. Then, the architect has to figure out the span of control. In other words, how many employees can a single manager effectively lead? A narrow span with just a few direct reports allows for a ton of oversight, which is great for really complex work. A wide span gives employees more freedom and independence. Most research kind of points to a sweet spot somewhere between 5 and 8 people. And what about power? Where are the big decisions actually made? Well, in a centralized organization, that power is held way up at the top. Think of McDonald's headquarters deciding on the menu for every single store. The opposite is a decentralized organization, like Johnson & Johnson, where decision-making is pushed down to local managers so they can react faster. And honestly, the trend today is definitely toward more decentralization to keep things moving fast. Okay, our final building block is formalization. The easiest way to think about this is the company's rulebook. How thick is it? In a highly formalized job, maybe at a government agency, there's a procedure for everything and very little room for judgment. But in a job with low formalization, like at a creative ad agency, employees have a ton more freedom in how they get their work done. So, when you start mixing and matching these 6 building blocks, you almost always end up with one of 2 classic architectural styles: the rigid and predictable mechanistic model or the fluid and adaptive organic model. And putting them side by side makes the difference super clear. The mechanistic structure is your classic bureaucracy. Lots of specialization, a rigid chain of command, centralized power. It's built for stability and efficiency. But in an industry that's changing fast, that rigidity is a huge weakness. And that's where the organic structure shines. It's all about cross-functional teams, decentralized decisions, and flexibility. It's built for one thing: speed. Okay, that's the theory. So how does this actually play out in the real world? The truth is, the most successful companies on the planet know that a blueprint can't be set in stone. It has to evolve. Let's look at a perfect example. Starbucks is just a fantastic case study of a company that has been willing to redesign its blueprint again and again to keep up with its insane growth. I mean, in the very beginning, their structure was so simple. The founders just handled different parts of the business. But as they started expanding like crazy, they had to create a more formal, functional structure with dedicated departments for things like marketing and operations. And today, they use a really complex matrix structure that blends those functional experts with geographic divisions that run things in different corners of the world. And here's the key lesson from their story. What Starbucks understood is that success isn't about finding one perfect structure and sticking with it forever. It's about having a structure that can adapt as your strategy changes. That willingness to tear up the old blueprint was absolutely critical to them becoming a global giant. All right, so how can you actually apply all this? Let's give you a quick action plan to help you become the architect for your own organization. Seriously, you can diagnose the health of your company's blueprint just by asking these 6 questions. Think about your own workplace. Does the structure actually help you hit your goals, or does it slow things down? Does it create frustrating barriers between teams? Answering these honestly will tell you right away if your blueprint is in need of a serious renovation. But look, if you only remember one single thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. The single most important #1 rule in all of organizational design is structure follows strategy. It really is that simple. Your company's org chart isn't just the poster on the wall. It is the most powerful tool you have to execute your strategy. If your strategy is all about rapid innovation, a rigid, slow, bureaucratic structure will actively fight against you every single day. The design has to serve the mission, period. And that brings us to the final question, the one I want to leave you with. Take a hard look at your own workplace, your team, your company. Think about the bottlenecks, the frustrations, but also the successes. Is its blueprint actually built for the challenges of today and tomorrow? Or is it an outdated design that's just holding everyone back? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.